Okay, so again, it's about 6:04. Uh, do want to make sure that y'all don't have to stay with us too late into the evening. But thank you again so much for joining us. We are so excited to bring you this first preliminary draft of Plan Tucson 2025. For those of y'all who have been with us since the get-go, thank you again for coming back and spending time with us. If this is your first experience with Plan Tucson, we hope to see you again in the new year as we really kick off our engagement. But this is intended to be a first look at our preliminary draft together and a look at some opportunities that we'll have come January to continue engaging with us. And at the end, we're going to have time to go through our website to see how it functions, where you can download the plan and where you can learn about other engagement opportunities. And then we'll open it up to a general Q&A. Any questions that you have for us at this time, we'll do our best to answer, and then we'll continue to follow up with you for ones that we are not. He said unable to get his slideshow to move. Hold on a moment. Sorry, folks. There we go. Okay, so this is a long-range planning document in an effort to think about how we are affecting Tucson today over the next 10 years and the next 20 years. But we like to think in the large scope of how we affect our community over the long haul. And to give perspective to that, we like to begin with a land acknowledgement for how Tucson has been stewarded for not just the last 10, 20 years, or even the 100 or so years that we've been incorporated as the city of Tucson, but for the thousands of years that we've had residents taking care of this land. So we respectfully acknowledge the city of Tucson is on land and territories of indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the O'odham and Yaqui peoples. Committed to diversity and inclusion, our planning process strives to build sustainable relationships with sovereign Native nations and indigenous communities through education, offerings, partnership, and community service. Um, Today, my name is Cesar Acosta. I'm the principal planner and project manager on Plan Tucson. Our core team with us today is Amanda Smith, the lead planner, Ian Wan, and Jessica Janicek. And we are supported by several consultants, Scored the Group, who did the beautiful design of our draft plan, Southwest Decision Resources, who has helped us work through outreach and engagement opportunities, and the Planning Center, who has helped us with technical planning expertise, as well as drafting the document. All these groups and more have helped to really shape this initial draft. But of course, the community, have provided the most input on what this document is intended to be and how it's shaped out in this first draft. For those of you who are less familiar, though, what is the general plan? It is a long-range planning document required by the state, and it is unique in that aspect in that it is required by state to cover a broad range of issues and concerns, including land use distribution, transportation, how we are able to circulate across the community, open space, policies for growth and development, environmental quality, how we deal with water resources, housing, and safety. And it is also unique in that this is a document that is required to be passed by you, the voters. So while other plans will, of course, have community engagement and public outreach, at the end of the day, those are approved by mayor and council. This one will not move forward unless the public deems it worthy. And so mayor and council looked at our current draft of our current general plan, which was last passed in 2013, and directed us in November of 2022 to begin the process to update the general plan. So that kicked off what has been a 3-year process, and where it's broken up into 4 phases. We are now in phase 3, where we have our first draft of the plan and are bringing it for review to create a finalized, revised draft that'll go to Public Hearing and Planning Commission and then to Mayor and Council, ultimately intending to be placed on the ballot for November of next year. But a little bit about how we got to where we are today. When we kicked off this process in December of 2022, we've started to really just want to reach out to the broad range of the community to ask a question about what were the key concerns and core values of the community. So we began with asking questions like, what do you like about Tucson? What are your concerns about the city? And what kind of changes do you want to see implemented over the next 10 years? We started this as a broad outreach approach, and so we had large-scale events, intercept surveys where we were outside grocery stores or in parks with clipboards. We had pop-up events, and over the course of several months, and we were able to reach out to 2,000 individual people, had responses from 950 individuals in person, an additional 400 online responses, and in total gathered around 13,000 pieces of engagement that helped shape what would be the core themes that we would start formulating the plan around, which brought us to phase two, where we took all that information and synthesized into those five core themes, which became community resources, economic vitality, land use, housing, neighborhood and design, water, climate action and green space, and transportation, mobility, and access. And these five themes were broken into working groups, which were hosted by the city and attended by volunteers in the community. So these were 2 to 3 hour sessions that were held over the course of several months, usually during work hours of the week and during daytime. And so that we want to make sure that for folks who were unable to come to sessions at those hours, that we were still reaching broad community. So we also hosted 6 community forums at different parts of the city and online uh, during weekend and evening hours to make sure that we were touching all members of the community. We also hosted a number of pop-up events, and in that process, we had 655 unique attendants. So fewer overall fewer individuals, but much deeper engagement to tell us what should be the goals of the plan, what policies and strategies we should have to implement those goals, what should the organization of the document be, and what all things should be included in it to make sure it reflected really what the vision of the community was. And so after a year and a half of more or less continuous engagement, we had 20 goals, 328 plus policies, and a few thousand comments relating to what should be in the document. And so we started our initial drafting. And when we had our goals and policies laid out, we held a series of office hours in the summer of this year, where we asked, how does it look? Does this seem on track for what we want to have in the first draft? And the feedback we received was that this is good, but it was a lot of information, a little confusing on how to read it, and some of the goals seemed to be repetitive. So we went back and started to condense, redraw, and reconsider how we were laying it out, and made sure that each goal we had was distinct, that it covered a specific topic and area, and that the policies associated with these goals were clear and focused on what the goal it was trying to achieve that it was related to. And so through August and October, we revised that process. We reached out internally to all the different departments within the city organization to make sure that the work that we are creating is going to support their work and also reflected the work that's been done so far to make sure that this general plan not only reflects the vision of the community, but also is able to be implemented by the city as we move forward. We then took it to city manager's office for their perspective, and were recently given approval. And then yesterday, we really had Wednesday was our first day to actually release the draft. And now we're hoping to get the most important feedback we get, which is from the community. So this is our first look at the draft for Plan Tucson 2025. We have it broken up into 5 chapters. The first 2 chapters really are to orient the folks to both the document and to our city. So the introduction covers what is in the plan, what is its purpose, how it relates to other city planning documents, what are the state requirements for participation. It also gives an overview of how we got to where we are today, similar to the process that I just laid out, but in greater detail. And then also the guiding principles used when creating the plan. Chapter 2 has a brief overview of the entire history of Tucson, all the way back to our Hohokam and indigenous origins, all the way to today, where we have a list of current conditions. So things like our current demographics, what is our economic status, what is traffic and housing like in the city, what are recent development trends, and then a section on neighborhoods and how they interact and are an important part of our planning process and for how the city moves forward overall. Chapter 3 is really where the bulk of the plan lives. So this is our values, goals, and policies. And so this is where a lot of the work in phase 2 was done to shape what would become our main objectives. So there are 14 goals in this first draft. They cover areas ranging from transparency and efficiency and governance, all the way through sustainability and how we're making sure to be a more resilient city, affordable housing, education, water management, how we're preserving our historic resources and cultural resources, how we're best in promoting and strengthening our local economy, how transportation interacts with land use, and how we're making sure to have more inclusive and comprehensive land use planning over the next 10 years. And as I said, each of these goals has policies that are specifically linked and thought of intentionally to focus on how it can help achieve those goals. But they also, you'll see that as you read through the plan, that policies that appear in one goal will often appear in another, just to illustrate the interrelated nature between how these things impact one another. Goals that'll impact housing or policies that'll impact housing will also impact the health and wellness and safety of the community. Policies that impact our sustainability will also impact how equity is thought of in the city as well. And so as you read through the document, I encourage you to take note of how we have those interrelations between all the different goals. Also within the goal, within each goal is a section called Implementation Spotlight, where we bring attention to all of these specific functional plans that the city has, which help provide more specific policies, more specific goals that help achieve the broader general goal listed in the plan. Chapter 4 is where we host our future growth scenario map and development guidelines. The chapter lays out both the development trends and population trends that help shape what the map and what the policies that relate to help to illustrate, and also show how we came to create this first version of the map. The future growth scenario map that is in chapter 4 is actually the second draft and third overall iteration of the future growth scenario map that we have. The first version was looking at our future growth scenario map that was in the 2013 general plan and overlaid that with the development trends of the last 10 years to see what feedback and what guidance actually came about and where that shaped the reflective changes in our current conditions. And then we asked the public in a number of online and in-person surveys, where do we want to see more intense growth? Where do we want to see less intense growth? Where is it right? And where do we want to see it stay as it is? And in the second draft that we have here, what we're asking folks to respond to is, does this reflect the kind of character that we want to see across the city, or the kind of character we want to see develop in the city over the next 10 years? Each of these colors in the map is a different building block or future land use. These are not zoning categories, but rather intended to be guidance for the kind of character that we want to see in different portions of the city. So each of them includes a different mix of residential and commercial uses or industrial uses in our industrial area section. They all include different general attributes for what kind of character we want to promote in any of these specific building blocks, as well as the kind of transportation infrastructure that'll help implement best quality of life within them. In addition to the building blocks are a set of special planning areas, things like the Houghton Corridor and the Southlands. These are areas that are largely state-owned lands that have very little infrastructure or any development in them currently, but are part of city limits. And so there's also development guidelines and suggestions for how we can produce more specific master plan communities in these areas that'll provide not only a good mix of residential and commercial uses that'll serve people in those areas, but how to connect them into the city as a whole. And chapter 5 is implementation. So in this section, we cover the tools used for implementation. As I said in chapter 3, we focus on how existing functional plans, things that each of the different departments have that they work with, help to implement the goals. And so we list all of the different plans that the city has in function right now, and ones that are being updated and are ongoing in process to illustrate how and cite which goals that they are helping to implement, to show how we are working with all these departments to make sure that the goals that are more broad-based have more specific and more implementable processes and strategies listed in them. We also list all of our small area and neighborhood plans as well, as they help to implement the more specific and granular data of our development guidelines and strategies in our future growth scenario map. So we made sure to overlay our growth scenario map with all the existing small area neighborhood plans to make sure that guidance in those development guidelines for the future for the building blocks doesn't conflict with the data and the guidance of the small area plans as well. We also include a list of near and long-term projects. So these are more concrete examples of efforts that the city will undertake in the next 10 years. Some are within the next 2 years, some within the next five, some 10 years out, and how those projects help to move us forward towards the goals described in Chapter 3. And all of these are intended to provide examples of how we can make sure to keep track of how we're implementing and how the vision of the general plan can come to fruition through these different processes and through these different tools. Yep, sorry. So what comes next? We have several different ways to engage with y'all, and we want to make sure to get your feedback because this is not a done deal by any means. We really need to make sure that we have it right and that this draft covers all of the bases it needs to, not just in our policies and our goals, but also in how the narrative we have within it is reflective of the community at large and what part of the story is not included or should be emphasized more. And what other tools and processes should we include to make sure that it is a functioning document? And to go over some of our strategies and ways that we hope to get involved with everyone in the new year, I'm going to pass it off to Amanda to run us through some of our engagement opportunities.
Great. Thanks, Cesar. Hi, everybody. So excited to have you all back and to be kicking off another opportunity to hear from you all. So we have 3 different general ways that you can get involved with the Plan Tucson 2025 update at this phase. We will be having Plan Tucson feedback forums that you can attend. You can host your own meeting, which is really exciting, and you can take our online surveys. I'm going to tell you more about all 3 of these in detail in a moment. And I'm just going to say right now that we've taken great care to make sure that all 3 of these methods are very close to being similar. So you don't have to worry if you're doing an online survey, if you're missing out on something at one of the feedback forums. Like, all the questions are going to be pretty similar. So really just choose one that works for you based on your preferences and availability. As long as you get us your feedback back by January 20th, all of the feedback will be incorporated into the same update process. Next slide, please. So the Plan Tucson feedback forums, these are going to be great opportunities to come and speak with city staff about the plan, meet others who are getting involved. We have 5 events already planned at different locations across the city, as well as online at different times. So hopefully some of these will work for you. Registration is strongly encouraged, but not required. We had some misinformation during some of our last outreach that registration was required. That's not true, but we do really encourage it because it helps us to make sure that we can provide a good experience for everyone who attends. We use registrations to make sure we're providing enough really good food for you all, that we've got facilitators, that we're organizing the space appropriately. So if you know you're going to come, please do RSVP, but don't worry if you are deciding last minute or you want to bring some friends along. Like, we welcome walk-ins as well. Registration links are available on our website at the QR code there, or you could go to plantucson.org/get-involved, or also just right from our homepage. And we'll give you a tour of our homepage in a minute, but you'll find links to all of these events and more details right away at the top. Next slide. Great, so meeting in a box. This is super fun. So if you want to participate, but maybe for whatever reason you don't want to come to one of our events, but you do want to have a discussion, this is a great way for you to host your own meeting. So that could be if you're a member of a neighborhood association, or if you go to stakeholder group meetings, or even if you just want to organize a potluck, if holiday dinner conversation runs dry, we've got these meeting in a box materials for you. And this is a great opportunity to have meaningful discussions about the future of our city with people that you know well, or want to get to know better from the comfort of your own homes or other meeting spaces as you choose. So we have put everything that you need together to host your own meeting into a metaphorical box. This includes instructions for facilitating as well as taking notes, all of the reporting forms that you need, different reporting templates, participant agendas, everything. It's all online, but we know some people do prefer printed materials. So the amount of things that you need to print are very limited. And if you don't have access to a printer, you can go to any of the 6 ward offices in the city and they will have printed materials available for you. There are 2 meeting in a box activities that you can choose from. One that focuses on the different goals in chapter 3, values, goals, and policies. And then the second one is focused on the content of chapter 4 on the future growth scenario map and development guidelines. You can contact Plan Tucson AZ for Plan Tucson at tucsonaz.gov for support at any time. And all the materials that I just described are available on our website at plantucson.org/meeting-in-a-box or the QR code right there. Next slide, please. So if you are considering hosting a meeting in a box, but you've got some questions or you just want someone to walk through it, we took care to make sure everything was as clear and straightforward as possible. We tested these a few times, but we know sometimes it can be nice to just talk through it with somebody. So our wonderful consultants, Southwest Decision Resources, will be available at either of these 2 times to walk you through it. Please do register for these. Jessica's dropping the links in the chat. The only thing that we recommend is that if you're thinking of doing this, we recommend that you don't wait to schedule the meeting with your community until you've had these orientations. You can put them up, put the meeting on your calendars, come to this orientation meeting, and then go forth and lead. A couple of notes here. Both of these walkthroughs will be the same, so just pick the one that works for you. Okay, thanks. Next slide. All right, our final way to get involved is through our online surveys. Online surveys are great because you can do it at your own pace, at your convenience, leave feedback in your own words. We have 3 different survey options. One that goes through chapters 1, 2, and 5. One that will go through chapter 3, where you will review a goal and policies for that goal and give feedback on that goal. And you can do the chapter 3 survey as many times as you want, but focusing on one goal at a time. And then the 3rd survey is on chapter 4 on the future growth scenario map and guidelines for development review. And all of those surveys are also on our website. Here we go, one more time, plantucson.org/plan-2025-preliminary-draft-surveys. Got it? Good. We're putting the links in the chat for you. All right, I think that is it for me. And we really are excited to see you and hear from you again. Outreach is one of the most fun parts of this Plan Tucson process, and it's super meaningful. So thank you. I'll pass it back to Cesar, who will give a tour of the website, and then we can answer any questions that Jessica hasn't already answered in the chat.
Yeah, and so as Amanda said, all these materials are available on our webpage. If you've never been, I just wanted to give a quick tour of it. So just plantucson.org will get you there. If you just Google Plan Tucson, it's the first link that pops up. And so what we've done is made sure that you can access all the materials in multiple ways. So if you just on the home page, you can scroll down. If you want to tell a friend what is the general plan, we have a short video there that tells you what the general plan is. For our overview, we have links to the draft plan itself, ways to provide feedback, and an exercise or a survey activity for providing feedback on the future growth scenario map. So we have all of our different event opportunities, both virtual and online, listed here. So one's from January 6th, which is our first one that we're going to do in person, and then all the way through just January 16th, which is our last in-person one at the El Pueblo Center. If you'd like to learn more about what we've done over the last 2 phases, we have engagement summaries here for you to learn about our process up to this point. And then, of course, if you want to reach out to any of our team, we have our information here. Again, like our plan draft is available here. So you can access either the whole draft and read through it. You can download the full draft or any of the individual chapters if you'd prefer. And then we also have them on the side as well. So several ways of reaching that information. If you click on the panel at the top that says phase 3, it'll also take you to the preliminary draft material, or you can click get involved and it'll take you to any of our surveys. So if you want to do them individually, all the information for Meeting in a Box. So that includes all the materials you need for either session, which is on chapter 3, or all the session materials on chapter 2, as well as some introductory videos by me and Amanda. They really freeze framed those on very flattering images. So feel free to take a look at those, and then all the instruction materials for that. At the Get Involved page is also beyond our individual surveys, are also linked to our in-person activities where you can register. So links for all the registrations are provided. And then for the surveys, I'll say that Meeting in a Box focuses on chapters 3 and 4 because that is where the bulk of the plan is and where we thought the bulk of conversation would take place. But in the surveys, we do have a survey for chapters 1, 2, and 5. So the introductory material, the current conditions sections and implementation, as well as individual surveys for chapter 3 and chapter 4. And then there's surveys for the group materials as well. So those are distinct. And then, as I said, there is a place for materials for our future growth scenario map. Amanda?
Oh, sorry. You probably are going to answer this right now, but I wanted to make sure to highlight that there are two parts to the materials for chapter 4. So if you could just go over that. Sorry.
Sure, sure, sure. So yeah, there is the Meeting in a Box, which has materials for chapter 4, which is where we host our future growth scenario map and development guidelines. The survey associated with that, the individual survey and the survey and Meeting in a Box, is asking questions about the language for how we describe all the process to create the development guidelines and the growth scenario map, and also how we can provide feedback on the building blocks and development guidelines. And then a second part of it is for the map itself, which you can find here. So we have a video that can show you how to use our uh, mapping activity tool, or you can just go straight to it. So you can leave feedback. If you just click any of the spots here, that'll ping a location, and then you can answer questions based on asking, does this reflect what you want to see in the community as it is right now? And there's a place where if you just have general notes, you can provide that. And then we just ask if you're comfortable with it, tell us what your cross streets are so that we can kind of reference where people are providing feedback from geographically. This will help us to understand who we're hearing from in the community and if we need to try and get outreach in other parts to make sure that we're hitting everywhere in the city and getting feedback from everyone. So yeah, that is our website. There's a lot of material there. Yes. And again, just plantucson.org will get you right to this homepage. So I'm going to stop sharing. And that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. But we have the draft out now and are really hoping that you have the length of the holiday season as well as early January to do early review. And then in January, we're going to be coming back and hopefully getting some of y'all's feedback on what we can do to improve this draft and make it and put in revisions for it. But at this time, if you have any questions at all, like I said, we want to try and answer whatever we can. And then questions that we can't give answers to right now, we want to be able to follow up with. So we'll go ahead and start, Mr. Sell. You're muted, sir.
Always forget that part. The Commission on Climate, Energy, and Sustainability has one of its jobs is to evaluate the general plan, especially for climate, sustainability, energy issues. And I would like you to come to our next meeting, which will be, it's usually on the fourth Friday of each month. So it'll be January 24th. Unfortunately, your announcement came out after we had posted our agenda for tomorrow's meeting, and I would have rather had you there. But we're going to need to get together a subcommittee to go over the plan in terms of those sustainability aspects. So eventually, maybe Ian and I have been emailing back and forth anyway. So uh, contact me as soon as you can so we can get set up and see how our process fits into your process. Thanks.
So we'd be honored and grateful to attend. So yeah, absolutely. But again, we do want to make sure that any of your comments or feedback you have for us, that we get it before that meeting on the 24th. So we want to make sure and have all materials in by the 20th. So we'll be in contact with you directly to make sure that we can
Well,
touch base.
keep in mind that you have brought this thing out right before the holiday season, and I know at least half of our commissioners are going to be out of town for the next week or two. So, your timing is pretty terrible on this. So you need to be a little flexible, is what I'm telling you. Okay, so that's enough.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, we did our best to try and get this out as soon as possible. Suffice to say that, we wanted to make sure that, the draft was incorporate all the feedback that we had heard throughout phases 1 and 2, and that it also had the approval of each of the different directors within the city organization and the city manager's office. We had several new positions for all the different directors, including our city manager and assistant city manager. So there was a little bit of delay in that as well. But we wanted to make sure that, not only did we get their feedback and included, but that all the material that was in the draft was accurate as well. So there's a lot of new plans that have come in as we were drafting. So we wanted to make sure that information was updated. So we did our best to get it out as soon as possible. And that is also why we didn't want to do we wanted to make sure and have this kickoff conversation to let people know that the draft is available and provide as much resources on how to access the information. But that's why we want to make sure to wait till after the holiday season to really try for engagements. That's why we're waiting till early January, till after the holiday season, to start to reach out to folk. See, there was a question there from Mr. Henry about how to get messages. Were you referring to the website or to any of the posting materials?
So I think he wanted the copy of the chat that I'll send over to him, and then I'll
Got
see
it.
if I post the chat with the recording. That way, it's accessible to everyone as well.
Perfect.
I think to follow up on the question of engagement right now in the chat, we have one. If you could just provide a timeline, I guess, of the Planning Commission. I guess when our feedback opened, when it's going to close, and then kind of the transition into Planning Commission, and then Mayor and Council, and then further down.
Yeah, absolutely. So our draft opened a couple days ago. And so from that point until January 20th, we are open for any comments and from either any of the surveys, from any of our engagement opportunities, or from folks who give us information through a meeting in the box. After which we need the time to be able to incorporate that feedback into revisions for a revised draft, which we want to present to the Planning Commission for public hearings in late February and early March. And those will be open to the public. That's also an opportunity for any feedback or any engagement that you'd like, any additional notes you'd like to provide to us will be recorded during those public hearings as well. And then we'll take all that information and along with the notes we get from Planning Commission and incorporate that into another draft, which we hope to present to Mayor and Council in late April, early May. And the reason we want to have that timeline is that we need to have Mayor and Council's approval for ratification to be able to get it onto the ballot for November 2025. So that's why we have the timeline we have. But from now all the way through that final draft that we'll have in April, we are open to any of the feedback we have from the public and want to know what we can do to make this a more reflective draft and a better document that will be something that we can really use over the next 10 years. All right, I see a notice from Colette that a number of the policies many of the policies are open to interpretation, which does not make good for trustworthy public policy. Heard, understood. And as we've said a lot in our phase one and phase two engagement, a general plan is a bit different from others in that because of the scope and length of the time that the plan is open for, we want to make sure that things are relevant and that it can be uh, something that can be a flexible tool that can support a lot of the different processes in the city over the next 10 years. So any of the initiatives that successive city councils and mayor's offices and different departments wish to integrate, that we're going in a general direction for what the city wants to achieve, but that the goals and policies are broad enough that they can be supportive of more specific initiatives. So that's again why we made sure to tie all of our goals to those more specific plans that have more delineated, more specific timelines for anything from housing or climate resilience or cultural preservation. That we can make sure that that those initiatives are being supported by the broader general plan. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Olson. Not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, City of Tucson. My name is Mikhail Olson. I'm an entrepreneur, and what I would like to present is basically I have a set of skills that I believe I could bring to the city to help improve this, to make it more engaging. There's Discord, there's Trello, there's a whole bunch of different applications that we could be taking advantage of to integrate policies and get them out. And I think it would be more, you'd get more feedback and you'd be able to run this and I could integrate it into the website. I do web development. I do a whole bunch of stuff. So, like I said, I'm an entrepreneur. You can find me on my website, mikhailolson.com. That's MCKALEOLSON.com. And I have a bunch of stuff there so you can check out. But yeah, I really want to like get on board with this because I love planning cities. I have a game called Life Simulator, and you guys could basically think inside of these places in like metacognition and use some of the plugins that I've worked on.
Well, thanks for your offer. And, certainly I encourage everyone, you included, sir, to share our materials on as many platforms as you have, be it Discord, be it Reddit, be it, personal chat groups. Any resources we can provide to y'all that you know of a place where it's not being seen that you think it would be beneficial to the public, let
Yeah.
us know and we can share that with you so that you can share
I
that
should
out.
also mention that I have 700 million players on a video game platform called Roblox.
That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ricky, I also see your hand.
Very excited.
I
I'm
just
sorry.
had a comment about this January 20th deadline. I think just because this is rolling out, like there's 4 weeks, but two of those are holidays. And so like very specifically trying to get in contact with anybody and getting them to read like a 300-page plan during the two major holidays of the year, I think is pretty difficult. And so I'm wondering if there's any way that that deadline could maybe be pushed out so that other groups oh my gosh, she was talking earlier. So that like Jim's group has an option to be able to like formally discuss it at a meeting, or that like the historical commission has time to like adequately review this. Because like the historical commission meeting is on the 8th, and like how many people are gonna read 300 pages between now and the 8th? Like probably just me. So is there any way to push that date out a little bit further so that we can gather community comments from the folks that we're working with?
Short answer, maybe. A lot of it depends on how much feedback we're getting in those early bits of the process. If we're hearing a lot of consistent information, things that are not hard for us to change or implement, perhaps we can extend the deadline. If we're getting a lot of feedback, a lot of very different changes where it's going to require us to do more substantial revisions to the draft, then we do want to make sure that we have the time to integrate those in. Again, part of our constraint in the timeline is just that we want to make sure to get these to public hearing um, within substantial time so that planning commission can hear them, and then that we have time to revise further to get it to council. So I think really our hard deadlines are those April, May dates for when we get it to mayor and council, because if we don't get it by then we're looking at calling for a special election, which is a lot of money for the voters to have to put up to pay for it. And then also means that if we can get on the ballot, but not at that time frame, then voter information materials don't get sent out either. So we do want to make sure that people know what's on the ballot, and that they can have enough time to really understand like what the proposition will be asking for them. So those are some of our harder constraints. So short answer is maybe. We're trying to set the 20th just as an idea right now, or just as an expectation now. And so that all the materials we have available, that folks are kind of thinking, okay, get in gear to start reading and start thinking about how to organize a meeting. But yeah, no, I understand. Definitely appreciate the constraint about the holidays. So we really did try to get it out sooner, but it's just the earliest we could possibly get it around.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sarah, there's a question in the chat about the relationship between Plan Tucson and general plans. I'm sorry, and specific plans, as well as functional plans, and how we integrated in the ones that are existing, and how forthcoming specific plans or updates will relate. Just if you could talk about the interconnectivity of the different plans, that would be helpful.
Sure. So state statute allows for what are called specific plans, ones that are geared towards a specific neighborhood or an overall area, that can help implement the vision of the general plan. So specific and area plans are intended to help implement a portion of the general plan. And that's true of all the functional plans, which are things like HAST or PCHIP or Tucson Resilient Together. These are what are considered functional plans that help focus on a specific part of the vision for the city as a whole. And all those are intended to help implement the general plan. But as we're updating this general plan, a lot of those processes had already been put in place, and we didn't want to simply erase all of that great work, since they had also received a great amount of public input and feedback. They're just as much a reflection of the community as any new information we'd receive. So what we did is wanted to make sure to integrate all of those specific processes into the vision that we'd heard from the community as far as what were the specific goals that we wanted to see move forward in the next 10 years. So is there work being done already to move us towards those objectives? And that's what we found as we were doing this process, that the city is already doing a lot of the work that the community wants to see continued. So new plans, new processes that are in process right now, we're working with departments as those plans are being created to make sure that feedback that they're receiving is reflected in the document that we're creating. So it's still the current conditions, it's still the feedback from the community that we want to see moving forward. So we wanted to make sure that was reflected within the general plan. But none of those final documents are shaping what the general plan is, and vice versa. So the general plan will do our best to incorporate the feedback that any of these other processes are getting during update. But it'll be the general plan on its own the feedback we're getting on the general plan is what's going to inform the general plan. And anything that happens with these other plans, we just want to make sure as much as possible that we're in sync with them as they're moving forward. But none of them should impact or change the direction of feedback we're getting on the general plan. I'm not sure if that's a convoluted way to describe that. But ultimately, all these plans kind of work together. So when we're thinking of processes, if we're talking about new housing initiatives, if we're talking about new transportation initiatives, we should look at all the different documents that the city has out in operation and how they work holistically together. So what is the specific guidance that one of them provides? What is the general context that it's set within? And that's kind of how we do our planning process here at the city.
We're getting a few complimentary comments in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, folks, our lines are open. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us directly. If you want help with Meeting in the Box, running the surveys, or just help downloading materials, happy to help. And otherwise, our first in-person engagement is going to be January 6th. It's a workday meeting. If you can't attend that, our first evening meeting will be January 8th at the Donald Liggins Center. We encourage and hope to see all of you there. Please tell your friends. We do want to get as much the word out there as possible and gather as much feedback as we can. Again, this process can't happen without y'all. It needs to be a document that's reflective of this community, and we're trying our best to make sure it is. Um, but thank you all so much for all the work you've put into it so far. We hope that you see yourselves in this first draft, and if there's things that you feel it needs to include, we want to make sure it does. Thank you very much for coming to our first kickoff meeting, and have a very happy holiday. I hope everyone is able to get some rest, eat a bunch of food, and see some good family. Take care, all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Bye, May. Bye, Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Thank you all so much. This is really wonderfully helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, May.
Really miss seeing all you guys.
Yeah, it's great. This will be fun.
Well, we'll be showing up again.
Good.
Good.
Thanks for coming, Bonnie.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Henry, Shu, Gary.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, you. Mikhail, any other note? Or did you just have your hand raised?
Yeah, hi again. So I'm really interested in this. Personally, I love planning stuff, and I'm an INFJ. It's one of the most rare personalities out there. Um, I'm someone who plans something and then replans it and then replans it again and finds every single way to optimize. So if you need me or if you want me to work for you guys, I'd be happy to do so. You can reach out to me or I could just talk to you guys here for a while.
I think some of us have to get out of here, but do you have if you have an email, drop it in the chat, and I can follow up with you tomorrow. I can follow up with you tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Mikhail, good. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate all your efforts to help get the word out.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Mikhail.
appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Gary, Bonnie, Bonnie or Shu, anything you would like to share? You want to move them into the waiting room? Oh. Looks like.
Hi. I'm a tenant, so my question would be the City of Tucson, the water department. I am renting, and I swear to God, I don't know whether it's the washer that my landlord is providing or it's the harsh water, but it's ruining my clothes. So it's just maybe a odd question I have. So I apologize to have you stick around to hear me complain. I just want to figure it out because maybe the folks around here might know the answer, but I might not be a good neighbor right now to be gathering data like what is this water? Why is it making my skin turn all ashy? So I apologize for bringing this up. My complaint is about the water in my area.
No apologies needed. And so I wish I had a better answer off the top of my head for what it could be a couple things. It could be the building itself. It could be just your specific skin to our specific water qualities. It could be just a bad faucet. I'm not entirely sure. Amanda dropped the link for our water customer services. They are pretty responsive, so I'd recommend reaching out there.
I appreciate it because I analyze a lot, and so I really would love to have a great answer, and then maybe I will give them a call, the City
Yeah.
of Tucson's Water Department.
They have
Please
a lot
do.
of great resources on their website. Like there's a lot of good stuff there. And I had to buy a water softener to attach to my shower head. So I feel you.
Yeah, I have a bad temper, so if I try to do a lot of things myself, I get annoyed. Like, it's a great idea, but I'll research that.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You
You
too. Take
too.
care.
Bye bye.